I had the fortunate opportunity to run across this story that I don't recall hearing about. If I did, it was obviously years ago, but it's a story about Georgia Ann Robinson, America's first black female police officer who was hired by LAPD of all law enforcement agencies, right? You know what I'm saying. But anyway, yes, I ran across the story and I want to share it with you guys. Sit back, relax, and let's start. While blacks, especially those with Native American ancestry or influency, were often recruited as deputy marshals in Indian Territory, they were often kept out of law enforcement positions. That is until the 20th century, when major cities began to bring in black officers slowly. One such officer was Georgia Ann Robinson, the first black woman to become a police officer. Georgia Ann Hill was born in Opelousas, Louisiana on May 12, 1879 to a struggling family in Laundrie Parish, Louisiana. Robinson was raised by her mother and then after her mother died by an older sister. Later, when the sister could no longer support her, she boarded at a convent school. She got a ride west with a white family when she was 18 and landed in Kansas, where she worked as a governess. She then met Morgan Robinson. We don't know how they met, but Georgia later recalled that they had married 2 weeks after becoming acquainted. Shortly thereafter, the pair moved to Leadville, Colorado, where Morgan got a job with Carbonet National Bank. Daughter Marion was born in 1906. In 1916, when the Los Angeles Police Department was facing a shortage of officers after many enlisted to fight in World War I, Robinson was recruited to leave her community work to join LAPD as a volunteer. She worked as a jail matron for 3 years. Around this time, African American club women were working to get black women hired by the police. Organizations like the National Association of Colored Women's Club believed having black female police officers would both protect black women and girls from white male violence and would help combat harmful stereotypes about black women being more sexually active and available. Okay, let's put a pin in this and come back. We'll come back to Miss Robinson, Miss Police Officer Robinson Police Officer. Let me repeat the aforementioned paragraph. The National Association of Colored Women's Club believed having black female police officers will both protect black women and girls from white male violence and would help combat harmful stereotypes about black women being more sexually active and available. So, before black men have been portrayed as the number one predator to black women, white men have been the number one predator to black women. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Let's continue to veer off talking a little bit about the point I'm trying to make. Repeating some cases that happened in the past, and then we're going to come back to Miss Officer Robinson's story again. I promise you will pick up what I'm dropping down. 4 white men raped a black co-ed, and her case became a landmark. The night was near its end, and it had been a glorious one for the 2 couples sitting in a car at the edge of Tallahassee, Florida Park in one of the town's black neighborhoods. They were in their own spot, chilling, minding their own business. The girls were dressed in ball gowns and the boys in their formal best, having just attended the Orange and Green Ball at Florida A&M University where they were students. They hadn't been at the park much more than 15 minutes when a car pulled up with 4 white men inside. The young black couples were weary, and rightly so. That concern turned into fear when the white man got out, pulled a gun on them, and ordered them out of the car. The audacity! You see the mindset? Like, It was ingrained in some white people to think that black people would ever, forever be their property. And there was nothing you could do about it. The women were separated from the men. One of the women broke free and ran into the wooded park. The other one could not get away. A knife was placed against her throat. The 4 men kidnapped the woman that they caught and drove her to a remote area of the county and repeatedly raped her. Her name was Betty Jean Owens. Owens only escaped after her friends alerted the police and officers tracked them down. I was surprised they did that much, at the time. It still applies today. Not too much effort is put into helping black women when they're in situations. They found her trembling and dazed inside, still, around her assailants. That 1959 case marked a turning point in the long, horrible history of sexual violence against black women by white men, stretching back to the slave era. Let me briefly recite another case that happened in 1944. It's very brief. Then we'll go back to Police Officer Robinson. Alabama ignored, this is the headline back then, Alabama authorities ignore white gang's rape of Negro mother. Reese Taylor, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. Taylor was a young wife and mother in Abbeville, I'm thinking it's Abbeville, Alabama, walking home one night in 1944 from church. Taylor was forced into a car by 6 white men, taken to a wooded area, raped, and abandoned. Okay, that's all I wanted to discuss about those, the last case. So let's go back to Police Officer Robinson. And my point, as I said, with the reason why I brought up those 2 cases, is because, just think about how, you had these these women organizations that wanted more black female officers in the police force to help protect black women and girls from being savagely abused by white men. And now it flipped some kind of way where the nation and country is saying that black men are the biggest predator against black women. You got to wonder how it flipped so much like that, Okay, back to Officer Robinson. The family moved to Los Angeles in 1912, where Morgan landed a coveted job at Los Angeles Trust and Savings as a porter, one who walked cash deposits between bank branches. He came with excellent references, having done similar work in Colorado, bringing silver straight from the mines to the bank. That job required him to carry a sidearm, which was almost unheard of for a black man at that time. The Robinsons rented a few houses before building one at 969 South Mariposa Avenue. I tried to look to see if the house was still standing, and what I saw, it was nowhere. I know they didn't build what I saw standing there now, which remained in their family for the rest of their lives. Morgan eventually became a cashier at Los Angeles Trust and Savings and then a manager. Even though Morgan earned consistent pay, Georgia had no interest in staying home all day and immediately set about creating and volunteering with several African American women's cultural and civic clubs. She would eventually rise to prominent levels in NAACP and Sojourner Truth, among others. She knew, says granddaughter Nancy Renee, that they had to keep doing things to make themselves and lives of other black women better. One of these organizations was the Fies Art Lit More Club. I would just put it in text because I don't know if I'm saying it right, which was in its 3rd year of existence in 1915. When some LAPD officers came out to ask members for help, said Renee, they asked who would be interested in becoming a matron at the city jail, and my grandmother simply raised her hand, and that was that. At that time, police women were expected to be 30 to 44 years of age. Robinson was 36, to be married and hold a college degree in teaching or nursing. Robinson held one in nursing. At first, Robinson was neither paid nor trained. The matron position was strictly a volunteer one, and yet she felt that that was her opportunity to help young girls and women before they lost all chance of becoming useful and happy members of society. She did start receiving pay a year later, and on June 10th, 1919, she was sworn in as a regular policewoman. John Thomas, chief of the Department of Safety at the University of Southern California and a retired veteran LAPD officer, came across the story of Georgia Robinson while working as an aide to former Chief Bernard C. Parks. Parks tasked Thomas with finding photos of notable African American officers who had served on the force. This project led Thomas to the Police Historical Museum, where he found curled, dusty photos of officers going back as far as the turn of the 12th century. Thomas came across a story about Gail Ryan in a 2001 Los Angeles Times article. Ryan, a 32-year veteran of LAPD, started as a jail bookings officer and retired as an auto theft detective. She then took it upon herself to become an unofficial historian for LAPD. The story about Ryan mentioned that she had interviewed Nancy Renee about her grandmother's experience as America's first sworn black female officer. Thomas was dismayed to find that there was no information about these officers, and he became determined to find their stories. Thomas interviewed Renee as well and poured through departmental archives to find out more about what Robinson's working environment must have been like. Back then, he said, the department was segregated along racial lines. It still is. Invisible racial lines. Just like everywhere else. Black officers could not drive patrol cars at night. They worked in the same offices as the white officers, but those white colleagues would not speak to them outside the building. Ooh. They were well respected in their communities, but not so much in their own department. Has it really changed? Though not always followed, there were laws on the books in the state of California that prohibited black officers from arresting white people. Jeez Louise. Robinson was not allowed to carry a firearm or handcuffs and always maintained that she had no desire to do so. She spoke with such authority and physicality that she never had a problem showing her badge and asking a man or woman to get on a streetcar with her so that she could take them to jail, since she was not allowed to drive. Gee, what the? See, let me explain a little bit. This is why my reactions are as such. I get the story, I put it together, I'm reading a little bit through it to make sure it's in order and I'm not saying things, making sure that it's fluid, lining up and making sense, but I'm not thoroughly reading it and processing it. So I'm basically like kind of hearing the story as you're hearing it, and it's like, wow, it's like flipping my wig. Okay, let's put a pin in this. And I will continue on part 2. Thank you, and I will see you there.